Welcome everyone. In this video, let's learn about surds in basic form. Okay, so in order for us to understand surds in basic form, here are some given problems that we are all going to solve in order for us to understand surds in basic form. Okay, so the question is that we have to simplify in the following. First, we have root 80. Second, we have root 56. Then third one, root 200. Then the fourth one is simplify root a squared times b. Then the last one is that we have to simplify root a squared times b raised to power 5. Okay, so let's start with the first question right here. In this question, we have to simplify root 80 or reduce 80 to its basic form. Okay, now before I simplify root 80, I would love you all to learn this the basic rule of sword, right? To learn the basic rule of sword. Now, this basic rule of sword are the fundamental rules which are commonly used while simplifying expressions involving sword, right? And we have the first one, which is x plus y. Now, if you have root x plus y, it is not equal to root x plus root y. Okay, and also if you have root x minus y, it is not equal to root x minus root y, right? And also if you have root x times y, right, it is equal to root x times root y. Okay, and the last one is that if you have root x divided by y, it is equal to root x divided by root y. Okay, good. Now, coming back to the question, here we have to reduce root 80 to its simplest form or basic form. Now, to simplify this, all what you need to do is to look for a perfect square number and multiply that perfect square number with another factor, right? And the perfect square number and the factor which are both multiplied together must give you the number within the square root. Okay, now let's say we think of a perfect square number. Let's say we think of 4. Now 4 times 4 is equal to 16, right? 4 times 4 will give us 16. 4 is a perfect square. Also 4 is a perfect square. Now if we say 16 times 5, now 16 times 5 will give us 80, right? Now as you can see, we've multiplied a perfect square number with another factor which is 5, and it gave us 80, right? So instead of 80, we are going to write down 4 times 4 times 5. So 4 times 4 times 5. Okay, now that will give us 80. Good. Now, following the rules of sword, that if you have a sword, right, if you have a sword that has two numbers joined by times, x times y, it is equal to root x times root y. They will be separated, each having their own square root. Okay, now we're having root 4 times 4 times 5. Now this will be equal to root 4 times root 4 times root 5, following the third rule of sword. Okay, now if you have root 4 times 4 times 5 joined by times in a sword, then it can be separated, each having their own square root. Now root 4 is equal to 2, right, times root 4 is equal to 2 times root 5. Okay, now 4 is a perfect square number. 2 times 2 will give us 4. Good. Now 2 times 2 will give us 4 times root 5. Okay, now this is equal to 4 root 5. Now this becomes our final answer to this question, root 80. Okay, now root 80 is equal to 4 root 5. This is the simplest form of root 80. Okay, now going to the next question. The next question is that we have to simplify root 56. Root 56. Also, to simplify this, we need to look for a perfect square number that will be multiplied with another factor that will give us 56. Okay, now if we think of 4 times 2, 4 is a perfect square number, right? Now 4 times 2 will give us 8. 8 times 7 is equal to 56. Now in this case, we've multiplied a perfect square number with another factor which gave us 56. Now, instead of writing down 56, I'm going to write down 4 times 2 times 7. So 4 times 2 times 7, which is equal to 56. Now, following the rules of surd, that if you have root x, y, right, joined by times, let me clean this off. If you have root x times y, right, x and y is joined by times, in surd it can be separated as root x times root y. Okay, good. Now following the rules of surd, this becomes root 4 times root 2 times root 7. Okay, now root 4 is equal to 2 times root 2 times root 7, right? Now, looking back at this same rule of surd, that if you have two surd, x and root y, that they are, and it is joined by times, root x and root y is joined by times, it can be written or expressed as root x times y. Okay, now following this rule, this will become 2 times, here we have root 2 times root 7. Same thing here also. Now this can be expressed as root 2 times 7. Okay, now this is equal to 2 times root 14, right? Now, which equals 2 root 14. Now, so therefore, root 56 is simplified as 2 root 14. This is the basic form of root 56. Now, if you look at root 14 cannot be simplified further. So, we leave the answer this way. Okay. Now, the next question is this, root 200. We have to reduce root 200 or simplify root 200 to its basic form. Now, root 200 will be equal to, you are going to think of a perfect square number, right? That will be multiplied with another factor, which is going to give us 200. Now, if you think of 4 times 2, now 4 is a perfect square number. Now, 4 times 2 is equal to 8. Now, 8 times 5 will give us 200, right? Good. Now, instead of 200, we're going to write 4 times 2 times 5 times 5. Good. Now, root 4 times 2 times 5 times 5. Okay. Now, following the rules of surd, this is going to become root 4. Now, because they are joined by times, each of the numbers will be separated, each having its own square root, times root 2 times root 5 times root 5. Okay. Now, root 4 is equal to 2 times, good. Now, if you have root 2 times root 5 times root 5. Now this is, let's take it one by one. Root 2, good, times root 5 times 5, following the rules of surd. Okay, now this becomes 2 times root 2 times root 25, right? Now this becomes 2 times root 2 times, now 25 is a perfect square number. Root 25 will give us 5, right? Now this becomes 2 times 5 will give us 10. 10, okay, no, let me clean this off. This becomes 10 root 2, right? So therefore, root 200, the reduced form of this is equal to 10 root 2. Okay, good. Now the next question is this. We have to reduce root a squared times b to its simplest or basic form. So we have root a squared times b. Good. Now, to simplify this, following the rules of surd, that if you have root x times y, it can be simplified as root x times root y, right? Good. Now this will become root a squared times root b, right? Good. Now square will cancel square root, you'll be left with a. So a times root b becomes your answer. So therefore, root a square times b, right? The reduced form of it is a root b. Final answer. Okay, good. The next question is this, that we have to simplify root a square times b raised to power 5. Okay, good. Now to simplify this, also following the rules of surd, that if you have root x times y, it can be simplified as root x times root y. Now this will be equal to root a squared, right, times root b raised to power 5. Okay, now square cancels square roots, you'll be left with a times root b raised to power 5. Now looking at it, this b raised to power 5 can also be simplified further, right? Now to simplify it further, we're going to look for a perfect square number that will be multiplied by another factor that will give us b raised to power 5. Now if you say b raised to power 4 times b raised to power 1, right? Now this will be equal to b raised to power 4 plus 1. And this is right. This will become b raised to power 5, right? Following the rule of indices, if you have the two bases, the two similar bases, right, you pick one base and add sum up the powers. Now if we look at b raised to power 4, now b raised to power 4 is a perfect square number. It is multiplied by another factor b, which gave us b raised to power 5. Now, instead of writing b raised to power 5, I will put down b raised to power 4 and times b raised to power 1. So therefore, a times b raised to power 4 times b raised to power 1. Okay, now b raised to power 1 is still b. A times root b raised to power 4 times b, because root b, following the rules of surd. Okay, now this becomes a times root b raised to power 4 is b squared, right, times root b. Now this becomes a b squared root b. This becomes your final answer. So therefore, root a squared b raised to power 5 is equal to ab squared raised to square root of b. Now this becomes your final answer to this question. Okay, good.